Welcome at the new edition of the Market Reporters, and I think we have a special edition because every week we talk about the client, but now we have a client at the table. Welcome, Hans.
Fine.
Fantastic that you are here.
A pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So before we go to you, I think it's Friday and the new all over in the news is about Trump, because Trump has coronavirus and his wife. So I think the next days will be really interesting to follow. When the news came out, already the futures went down in the US with 2%. Yeah. So because markets don't like uncertain situations, and this is an uncertain situation because the upcoming elections next month, and Trump has to stay at home for at least 2 weeks. So we talked about it before this, and yeah, will there be a second debate? Will it be online, or does come and Biden to the house of Trump? It's also possible.
Who knows?
So special times. Hans, you are an investor for a long time.
Yes.
How are you doing this year?
Well, I'm surprised by what I see, because one would expect that the coronavirus would create an enormous dip in anyone's portfolio. And of course there are sectors in society that have been hit severely. We don't need to mention them, we all know them. But in an early stage I have concentrated my portfolio in future trends, at least that's what I consider future trends, and in regions, geographical regions where I think the recovery is going to be happening earlier than, let's say, in Europe and America. So I'm talking about Asian countries, like China, of course, but also Taiwan, South Korea, and Vietnam. So those are countries that I have a part of my portfolio invested there. Yeah. And when it comes to technology, I try to understand the world we are living in. I'm in a continuous dialogue with myself, asking myself in 10, 20 years' time, where would we be? Yeah, and of course there's uncertainty, but still I think there is a sort of underlying movement whereby, especially in technology, things will happen. If you like it or not, things will happen.
And so bottom line, today, after the first 3 quarters of this year, do you have in your portfolio, is it green, is it a plus?
Yes, it's green.
Oh, that's fantastic. How much around?
Well, I looked last week, I think it's around 6%.
Oh, that's fantastic. And where do you invest?
But I have to admit that it has to do with certain, like in my case, I have had huge advantages of Alibaba, the Chinese counterpart of Amazon, if you like. Yeah. So that is a fund that I have confidence in, and I think online services is one of those trends that I'm talking about, and that is something that was very positive.
Do you then invest in stocks, or also, so like Alibaba is an individual stock, do you invest more in individual stocks or more in funds or ETFs?
No, I don't want to invest in individual companies unless, as is the case, in my case, Alibaba is an exception. But basically, I do not want to invest in individual stocks. I rather go for ETFs or iShares, grouping companies within my philosophy of future trends.
So you have ETFs based on certain sectors and based on certain countries.
Yeah, like for instance, nuclear energy. I talk about uranium. Clean energy with what was the English word for waterstof? Hydroxygen. So that's a sector, and wind and sun and solar, of course, is also part of that. Robotization is a thing that has a place in my portfolio. The big boys in America like YouTube, Amazon, Google, there's also an ETF that groups all of them.
And one other question, you are quite active, or you spend a lot of time thinking about your portfolio and talking with yourself, you said?
Yes.
I like it.
How many hours a week do we need to think about?
1 hour a day.
Okay. But it's including reading the newspapers like
Yes,
the Financial
yes,
Times,
yes,
etc.
yes,
Okay, 1 hour a day. Okay.
I don't want to overdo it, and I'm not a day trader.
No.
I try to
Active
check
investor.
the philosophy of my portfolio. I mean, are there things happening? But also, for instance, Brexit in England.
Yeah.
What would that be? They have enacted a law in Parliament that runs counter to the withdrawal agreement that they have signed in February.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a hard Brexit? What effect would that be on my portfolio?
No, that's good. Yeah. I saw an article this morning in the Dutch Financial Times, and that was from an analyst. And I think it was a lady. She said, "What can be happening now with Trump? That he will be more active against China because he will use China as
as an excuse.
He will say, "I'm sick now because of China, because they
looking for
created."
retaliation.
And she took the parallel to Boris in UK, because also when he received the virus, he also became more offensive against China. How do you look at it? What's your opinion about that?
Well, you should not try to make war with Trump. I mean, China would be wise to just let it go. We are 1 month before the elections.
Yeah.
And so what harm can Trump do more to China than what he has done already?
Yeah.
So China has decided, I think, let Trump be Trump, don't make war anymore, and hope for Joe Biden to win.
Yeah.
If that's not the case,
Yeah.
then really the world has a problem.
Another important news today for investors Friday, the last big unemployment figures before the elections. So if that's positive, Trump will use it in his advantage. If it will be negative, I think he will not talk about it, but it's an important figure. Also in the news this week was about the commercial real estate in the US that has been lower for 25% or more.
Yeah.
So we're talking about new economy, old economy. That's an old economy. Martin, what did you hear this week from your investors?
Interesting new company on the market. I think, well, it's not a new company on the market, but on the stock market. It's Palantir, is a US software company. There's a lot of mystery around that company. Initially, it was financed by the CIA. They basically make the software for the US government. It's a company that normally, if you go to the stock market, you do that via an IPO. In this case, they did it via a direct listing. And why is that? Because they already raised a lot of venture capital the last 10, 15 years. So there's a lot of cash apparently in the company. Interesting about this company is that they have 125 clients, but they only make money out of 3 of them. So it's a very interesting case. I would really recommend you to read about it. It's also a company that when it went to the market for $7.25, it raised the first stage 31%. 53% of their revenues are directly coming from the US government, so that could be seen as something safe or good, or you have to give your own opinion about it, obviously. But
so there is also a risk with the new election.
Yeah, but what I found funny was when I was reading about it, is that when they all every time choose the camp of the new president, obviously because they're depending on the government. So if they would not do that, so interesting company. Have a read about it, it's interesting to see how you can get through a direct listing. It doesn't happen a lot. The majority of the companies go through an IPO. This one actually went through a direct listing.
And why? Why they choose for the direct listing?
Because they had already. The purpose was not to get fresh cash.
Okay. Yeah.
And also what they are doing, and that's something also interesting to read about, is they only brought 70% of the shares to the market. So, and the new shares will be, the remaining 30% will be listed just after releasing the full year figures of 2020.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Now you follow Asia. You said this week is a week of closed markets in Asia. I think China was closed for a week, and a lot of national holidays in other Asian countries. And Tokyo, and it was the last time before was 30 years ago, they had a big issue on the stock market itself, a technical issue, and they were closed for 1 day. So still that can happen. One more question for you, Hans. you said you are quite active, and sometimes cash is also for you an important part of your portfolio sometimes. What's the percentage cash of your portfolio at the moment?
Well, that changes, but basically I think in the present market I would be well advised to have around 1/3 of my portfolio liquid in cash money.
And is that because of the upcoming elections?
Well, it's the whole feeling about uncertainties that may come our way, and I think having cash temporarily is also a wise investment decision at times.
Yes,
it's a way of investing.
But then, after the American elections, I will make a re-evaluation of the situation after Brexit. Perhaps we have a hard Brexit. What would that mean for Europe? So,
and one additional question. And do you have already a purpose for the cash money, or do you say, okay, when I'm going to invest more, I will invest in existing positions, or are you always looking for new positions?
Well, a mix.
Okay.
But I'm not leaving technology and go for the old economy, for instance.
And also not leaving Asia.
But for instance, blockchain technology is something that will crop up. I have not yet a feeling as to how that would be possible for an investor to invest in. I don't know. But also cybersecurity. This is a big issue.
Yeah.
But I'm...
And cybersecurity, we talked about it, is now moving from office security more to home security, because a lot of people are working from home, and I think that on average companies are better protected against cyber attacks than private individuals.
Absolutely. Okay, well that's a big issue.
Yeah.
So I'm searching always within my philosophy what are sectors, I'm not talking about companies individually, but what are sectors that have future potential.
Yeah.
And then I read about those sectors, and then I search for what is the best vehicle to invest in. That's what I try to do.
Very nice, very interesting. Thank you, Hans, for coming.
All right.
Thank you for watching, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you.